means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur 4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023.
Hey, I mean, that was a good point.
I think we might start seeing some go back.
Buck, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Here we go.
Hey, let's drink and talk some football. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett, Insert Noe here. OutDrank The Coverage. Brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions right here on L4 Media. Intern Noe, how are you doing? What are you drinking?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a rainy week right now over here in the DFW, but doing pretty well. And today I am drinking Four Roses single barrel strength. They're from Lexington, Kentucky, I think, and they come out with different recipes. And this one is called OBSK. Each letter has a significant meaning. The O just means the Four Roses Distillery. That's their designation. The B is the mash bill. So in this case, it's going to be a little bit more rye, about 35%. So a little bit more spicy. Esk, I think it just means straight whiskey. Which just means aged at least 2 years.
Yeah.
And then K, I'm trying to remember what that K meant. It won't take.
Was there 2 more Ks after?
There was not 2 more Ks after, sir. And
I'm not interested anymore then.
But yeah, I believe but anyway, yeah, OBSK, it's just one of the recipes. To me, it was like apple cider almost. Have you ever had apple cider?
Today.
Huh?
That's perfect for today with as cold as it is and rainy. I'm not even a cider guy, but I get it. Like I get why people would like a hot cider on this type of a day. Yeah,
it's a perfect for this type of day. It's about 30-something degrees outside. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. A little spicy, not my cup of tea to have more rye, but it's not too bad. Anyway, how are you, buddy? How are you drinking? Or how are you? And what are you drinking? I swear, I've not had any to start.
After you did all that lovely description, I'm doing 1 part fruit punch Powerade with 2 part vodka.
Okay.
Doing a good old fashioned gator tail, but with Powerade.
Cheers.
Cheers. By the way, yes, thank you. Cheers. Have you?
Think.
And by the way, this is OutDrank The Coverage on L4 Media. We talk all things Dallas Cowboys, NFL, college football, pop culture, sports, just a lot of fun. Right now, though, we are concentrating on the NFL playoffs. I texted you, I think it was Saturday morning. There's part of me that's always glad when the Cowboys are out. Now I can just enjoy the playoffs. I did enjoy the playoffs this week. This was, wild card week and also just the NFL in general this year had kind of been It was not the best product with injuries and stuff. I felt that this weekend of playoff games after the first one kind of redeemed the whole season a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I would say 3.5 games this weekend were really good. The only bad part of this weekend was that second half of the Ravens and Texan game. But yeah, the injuries kind of diluted what could have been a great season. You look at the Ravens, who are considered the best team right now left. The only issue they had was the running back position, and they kind of figured that out with Justice Hill and Gus the Bus Edwards.
Yeah.
Adding Dalvin Cook was pretty nice. I was kind of hoping for a Baltimore-Buffalo conference championship game because you could have had the Cook brothers against each other, but that didn't happen. So
I hate saying this, but I'm saying it in jest. I was this days old. I just I never added that up until earlier this year. Florida State, all that, and then I was just like, oh wait. I don't know why. I guess the Diggs brothers, they get kind of a little bit more and the Kelsey brothers, those are two of the kind of the famous brothers right now. So I guess that's kind of why I just didn't know that. But anyway, and by the way, I think James Cook, I've said this many times. If he somehow fell in Dallas's lap, I would be so happy. I think he is a 1,500-yard guy if he's in the right spot. I don't know if he's in the right spot right now, but we'll get to that here in a minute. But let's go ahead and start with the first game of the playoffs. And unfortunately for the Texans, you could kind of see it. That first drive that didn't go well in the second half, you kind of felt that the Texans had started to kind of run out of gas.
Man, kudos to Baltimore's defense. They shut down Houston on offense. The Houston didn't even get into the red zone the whole game. It was competitive.
It was a touchdown.
Yeah, it was a big punt return for a touchdown that made it 10-10 at the half. Like I said, it was competitive for the first half. The Texans were getting pressure on Lamar Jackson, but they just couldn't sustain it. And then Baltimore took over in the second half. They kind of did what they've been doing all year, those long sustained drives that kind of just cripple the opponent.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
For the Ravens, man, like you look at the prior 2 years, it was kind of cut short because Jackson got hurt.
Yeah.
And those 2 years they're what could have been, because when he was in the lineup, they were so good. But seeing a full season of him, them getting the number 1 seed, now he's starting to really understand Todd Monken's offense, and he's playing really good in that system, making plays with his arm and with his feet. Is this the best version of Lamar Jackson you've seen?
Yeah, I was about to say, and to me, the biggest positive is knowing when not to make the play, knowing when it's okay to throw it away on something that Josh Allen still hasn't figured out at times. Just knowing when to be like, okay, I've got a good enough defense, I don't have to score every drive. I think what you said about the way that, and I kind of, and I've watched the Ravens some, but a lot of times it's on Red Zone or it's on Monday night or Thursday night or Sunday night, and you and I are talking stuff, and I'm not just really focusing in. Well, I got to just really focus in on the offense this week, and I see now why Lamar Jackson's the MVP. It's not the stats, and I'm very much I hate that term. We were just talking about this off the air, like the whole, if you win a Super Bowl, that validates you as a quarterback. I sometimes think the whole, the things they do, that don't count on the scoreboard, I think that's a little overrated. But oddly enough, with Lamar Jackson, I think it's exactly spot on. I mean, that dude, if you need 3rd and 8, he gets you 9. If you need 3rd and 1, he gets you 2. And it's just, it's death by slow cuts.
Yeah, now he has a full complement of receivers around him. The scariest part about this, his favorite target, Mark Andrews, he might return next week. He's been out for the last few weeks.
I don't know where you put him.
Isaiah Likely has been a great substitute at tight end for the Ravens. It just makes them more dangerous and versatile. You could just switch them out, put 2 tight ends out there. Rashad Bateman, one of their first-round draft picks a few years ago, is starting to come on. Zay Flowers is proving to be a big star. OBJ is a veteran presence. So the Ravens went from a very unskilled wide receiving tight end position combo to having 5 legit weapons on offense at the receiver and tight end position. So this is a very dangerous team.
Yeah, for all the talk about Josh Allen versus Pat Mahomes, I don't know, man. I just kind of feel like we're about to hit this run of the next 4 out of 6 years. It's the Ravens and the Chiefs in the AFC title game because both of those teams are perfectly built. There's been some rumors that Andy Reid might retire. I don't see that, but if he did, he'd be handing it off like Bill Walsh handed the Niners off to George Seifert. Here you go. Just don't mess it up. But yeah, I love watching the Ravens play. I've always loved watching the Ravens play. They've always kind of kept, even through multiple coaches, they've always kind of kept that. They're like Pittsburgh East or Pittsburgh West. Pittsburgh Southeast. Anyway, them and Pittsburgh resemble each other. In the short time that the Ravens have been around, they play like the Steelers. Everything kind of mirrors what the Steelers does, but they've added now the desire to actually be aggressive on offense. And it just feels like the Ravens are about to make a run here in the next few years.
Yeah, the thing with them and any other team that's on the brink of competing is health. And this year they were relatively healthy.
Yep.
Now we don't know what'll happen next year, but this year for this 1 year they're healthy, and if they remain healthy, they're going to be a tough out, just like the Chiefs have been the last 6 years. So yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, 2020, we thought it was the Bills that were going to be that team for the next 4 to 6 years.
Yeah.
They have been really good, but they've stumbled in the divisional round. And, right now we don't even know if Sean McDermott's going to have a job next season.
I think he gets at least one more run, but I do think he's definitely on the edge. Now, for Houston, so this is the game that, and you and I had talked about before, for all the talk about what Houston's offense has done this year, and CJ Stroud, he should be the MVP. I mean, the offensive rookie of the year. And I think I'd make a case he's top 4 MVP. But this has also been a thing through the season that when you can stop him, there's nothing else on the offense. And they've got to figure that out. I like what Devin Singletary has done. I think you could go with him going forward as your main guy. But they've got to figure out how to diversify that attack, because you go back to like when the Panthers beat the Texans, that was a putrid offensive game. So that's the next step for the Texans, in my opinion.
100% agree. I'm not sure what direction they go. I think their offensive line is good enough. I think they have a tight end in Schultz. He only signed a 1-year deal. They might try to keep him another year. Nico Collins kind of broke out at age 24 this season. And they have a couple nice complement of receivers in Noah Brown. I'm waiting to see what John Mechie does. I think another year, another offseason, fully recovered was a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yeah.
I think I want to see him take that next step.
Yeah.
I think he was starting to catch on toward the end of the year, but I want to see what he does in 2024. I think just adding more depth, adding more weapons for him, because Stroud seems to be a very intelligent guy. He wasn't sacked in this game. He didn't throw an interception. He threw the ball away maybe a little too quick. I really think
a couple times too early. I think
I would say the one knock on him is man-to-man coverage, but in this case, Baltimore simulated defense when it's on. That pressure they get from, it looks like they're rushing 7, but they're really only rushing 3. The others are covering passing lanes.
Yep.
It's just so confusing to beat that defense, especially when Baltimore's defense is healthy and they're at home with that crowd. They're going to be tough out, but I think Houston's on the right path, obviously. They went from 4 wins to 10 wins, won their division, won a playoff game. Rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, young talent.
But they're going to learn that it's the next step that's the hardest. This was a great season. Look at what the Jacksonville Jaguars did last year.
Yeah.
Look at how they started the year, and everybody was like, wow, Jacksonville, they're not only a playoff team, but they're built to win an AFC title game. And they really are. They still are. I still think for some reason everybody talks about the collapse of the Jags, and it's like, Lawrence was hurt for basically the last 6 weeks of the season. He missed 4 weeks, and then the last 2 weeks you could tell he was hurt. So I kind of give him a pass. But it's always that next step that's the hardest. We see these teams almost every year. Somebody comes out of nowhere and we're like, uh-oh, look at them. Next year they're gonna, and then they never, because it's really, really hard. And Houston, I think, is in the right spot, but they've got to make every move right from it. They need to get more dynamic on defense too. I think that's just the thing. The one thing I see is there's a lot of youth and there's a lot of speed and athleticism, but there's, as you kept saying, the depth of that. They need to add to that. They need, boy, I was just thinking, boy, Brandon Cooks would be a great wide receiver for them next year. And it's funny because they got rid of him thinking that they weren't going to need a Brandon Cooks type of receiver for a few years. So I love it. I want Houston to be good. And I don't want them to just be good. I want them to be enjoyable. When they were good back in the day, honestly, they were just boring to me.
Yeah, it was. I agree with you. I mean, at one point it was Arian Foster. If he had a big game, they'd win by a couple touchdowns, and then if they didn't have a good day from him, it would be like a 2-touchdown loss.
Yeah.
And it always just seemed that they were not good enough. They were good enough to make the playoffs, but after that, 2011 was kind of their breakout year, and then they kind of plateaued after that. And then they traded Shaw, but it kind of took a nosedive a little bit. Then they came back
With
to
Watson.
yeah, but then again they plateaued, and then COVID happened, and massages happened, and the trade, and they decided to tear it all down.
Yep.
But they're back to a certain point, and now they got to learn the mistake they didn't learn the last 2 times, and
Exactly.
don't accept the second round, don't accept the divisional round. I know as a Cowboy fan, I shouldn't be saying any of that, or it's hypocritical, but they're young enough to where they can keep building and make a run to challenge the Ravens or the Bills or the Chiefs.
Well, and there's a little bit of a difference with Dallas. I mean, we can debate this 1,000 times, but with Dallas, we all feel at this point it's a mental roadblock. With Houston, they still have physical things they need to do. And not that Dallas doesn't, but I'm just saying overall, in the overall terms of thing, I think even with a tougher schedule, barring, bad injury run, Dallas next year, 10, 11, 12 games. That's probably what they're going to win. And they're kind of locked in now to where they just mentally got to get over it. Houston still needs to figure out some parts. And the hardest part is getting rid of guys who played well in this year, but you will need better than that in the next couple of years. That's the hard decisions to make, because you're getting rid of what's a known for an unknown, but you're needing the unknown to be better than the known, and that's where those decisions can make a franchise either stay where they're at or keep going up or collapse back down.
Yeah, I mean, like next season, do they keep Malik Collins? Do they cut Dameon Pierce, who had a down year after a great rookie year?
But then it seemed like late in the year they kind of found him as a good second back, like he had a touchdown last week in the playoff game, and they kind of seemed like they found. But again, like you say, do you settle for that because you know that, or do you go, hey, we need to upgrade? But then that's the thing. And this is why when we talk about like getting rid of a coach, why sometimes just because you cut the head off doesn't mean that the snake grows better. You can make a second choice that's just as bad as the first choice, or on the same level. So that's why when you go to like Mike McCarthy in Dallas, firing him doesn't guarantee anything. You've now got to make the second correct choice of the person that you hire, and so that's why it's so hard to make that unknown. I trust this Texan, and I got to admit, I think it's Nick. Isn't that Nick Easterby guy still part of it? Isn't he still the GM or whatever?
I don't know.
Or did he quit?
Let me look at the Texan GM. Yeah, I like how they are built, though. I think they're young at the key positions to where they can make risk. Like getting rid of key veterans. Yeah, Nick Caserio is still the GM.
Well, that wasn't who I was talking about. But he is. I was talking about that Jack Easterby guy.
Oh no, that was the whole. Yeah,
Yeah.
he ain't coming back.
Yeah, that was the weird thing. But anyway, I think what they've done now is good. Again, though, it's just making the right choices now, and it gets harder and harder. The next step is always going to be harder than the last step. But either way, it's just nice that they were enjoyable to watch. Like, it's fun to watch the Texans. Even when their defense or their offense struggled, it was fun to see what they're trying to do offensively. All right, let's go to the second game of the divisional Saturday round. And boy, this one was an exciting game. I'm actually surprised. Hey, I hate to do it, but watching the way Green Bay played this game, it doesn't make me feel as bad about the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys still spit the bit, but you know what I mean. It's not like they went out to San Francisco and looked like they didn't belong. In fact, I think we could all make the case that outside of 2 Christian McCaffrey touchdowns, Green Bay kind of outplayed San Francisco in this game.
The whole game, I really feel Aaron Jones ran everywhere against the really good San Francisco defense. And it's not like that defense was playing bad. It's just Green Bay over the last 2 months, they kind of figured it out. The light bulb flashed, and even in losses, Jordan Love was looking pretty good. I remember the loss at home to Tampa. It was kind of a blowout, but he still played well. And watching this game, I think it was one of his better games. He had really just 2 mistakes. And I think you talked before the show. We talked about one of them to end the game. But yeah, the other interception to Drake Greenlaw that I think resulted in a field goal. That was the other mistake. But overall, he had a good game. He was finding open receivers. Romeo Doubs has been consistently playing well and staying healthy. I like their future. They're going to be another team that's going to give fits to the 49ers and Cowboys and Eagles next season.
Well, and for the Niners, this was a game that proves how good they are because they didn't play their best in a weekend and a 2-weekend period that where San Francisco got lost. You would just chalk it up to that crazy NFC this year, and San Francisco, said no. Christian McCaffrey showed why he is who he is. Even I don't underrate him. I just, in the MVP talk, I'm like, I mean, if you took him off the field, yes, it would hurt the Niners, but it wouldn't destroy them. But you saw, especially that first touchdown run where he broke like 5 tackles. Now, for San Francisco, it wasn't all great. Deebo Samuel is hurt. Early reports are saying right now 50-50 that he'll play this week. And if he plays, where is he even at on the ability to perform thing? And this offense is completely different when Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey miss. These 2 guys are so interchangeable, which makes them so deadly that's great. But when you take one of them away, you can see the difference in the offense.
Yeah, I would say as far as pecking order of skill position, I would say it's Deebo, Christian, Kittle, and Ayuk. Deebo is their Swiss Army knife. He can pass, he can catch, he can run the ball. When Deebo was out, they just had to rely on McCaffrey. And luckily for the 49ers, McCaffrey came through. He didn't get hurt. He's been having a healthy 2 seasons, really, which is good for them. But not having Deebo there kind of lets the defense put more pressure on Kittle and Ayuk. And it kind of just – and then Purdy's still a young guy. He was Mr. Irrelevant last year. He's a pretty solid quarterback, borderline great quarterback, but it's still early. Not enough game tapes on him yet. And he's not like he has a strong arm or anything, but he's a smart player. He had that one bad game against the Ravens. But if you put some pressure on him, he's been proven to be able to be mediocre.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's his big kryptonite. And to be fair, that's like every quarterback's kryptonite outside of 1 or 2, epic players.
Even Tom Brady.
Yeah, no, especially Tom Brady. I mean, to me, the only guys that I think right now you don't want to pressure, like where you can allow them to move, is what I'm talking about, is like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and this year, Dak Prescott. I think one of the things Dak Prescott got away from in the playoff game is what he did so well all season long was avoid the sack and not run for yards, but get out in space and force a team to make that, should I come up for you or should I stay defend? And Purdy is a little bit like Brady, where when he starts to get pressured, he kind of gets locked into the pocket. Like he just doesn't move well into the pocket. I still contend that he's more of a system quarterback, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like people hear that and they want to, we try to rate everybody at a Hall of Fame level now. And it's like, well, can he just be a good quarterback? What's wrong with just being a guy that, 15 years from now, when we're talking about, watching YouTube of the 2020s forgotten quarterbacks, and we see Brock Purdy and go, oh yeah, Brock Purdy, he won a couple Super Bowls. He was pretty solid. But now we got to put him, they're an MVP. And I think he fits their system. And sometimes that's more important than anything.
Yeah, we thought Jimmy Garoppolo fit their system, but he was always hurt, and then he'd have his bad days. But Purdy,
I think Jimmy G, I think there's a part of him that just kind of checked out. I think he's getting checks, and I think he's not. And I don't mean like he's a bad teammate, but it just feels like he just he just decided he didn't want to develop anymore. Because I'm like you. I thought, I mean, and so did Shanahan. I thought he was perfect for this system. Like everything he did well fit this system, and they could eliminate the things he did bad, but he just kept doing bad things. I thought his development kind of got cut.
Yeah, that good end to the 2017 season kind of got him that fat contract, and he's been okay since. My issue with him, as much as I like Jimmy G, I would say the one positive about him is his teammates do love him. He's a
Yeah.
great guy to have in the locker room, but the downside is for all that money he was getting paid, you don't really. He's just not consistently good each and
Yeah.
every week. He'll have some great weeks, and then he'll have some really bad weeks where he's throwing interceptions he shouldn't be. So I think with him, he's the type of guy that can get you to 10-7, whereas Purdy's a guy that's consistent enough to get you to 12-5 or
Exactly.
13. So that's what I would say as of right now, the difference between Purdy and Jimmy G.
No,
Both are fine, but
yeah.
I would have a preference, one or like Purdy over Garoppolo.
I think right now I'd want Purdy because I do think he doesn't tend to make the oh my god mistakes. He does it either in a bad game or two. So I think he threw multiple receptions in 2 games, and that's it. Every other one was just one or one here, one there. But I don't know. I just feel like he could. I still feel like he could drive you 60 yards in a minute if you needed him to. I don't know if Jimmy G could, unless it was to a porn star. All right, let's go to Sunday, the first game. The one to me that was the just most exciting because this game, at times it looked like these two offenses could score, 40 points each, and then there'd be a whole quarter where neither team really moved the ball. But you had big plays. You had plays that were spread out. This was just this is the way playoffs should be. And Detroit outlasts Tampa Bay 31-23. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't know how because I know his backstory, but damn it, if I don't root for Baker Mayfield now, there's just something about him. I get it. I get why he's one of those guys that everybody says, I hate him. And then you talk to people who are teammates and fans of him. Yeah, you only hate him because he's not on your team. He's one of those guys. He's the Danny Ainge of the NFL.
Danny Ainge, what a great comparison. Yeah, it was a career year. He's still under 30. Todd Bowles wants him back. So it seems like people like him in that locker room. And having another offseason, if they can keep their offensive coordinator, who had a pretty good first year as the OC, I think if you keep him, that'll be a much better team. Hey, and you know what? I'll give you credit. You actually called it. You said Tampa is not going to be as bad as people think they're going to be.
Yeah.
Because, going into this offseason, they had Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. Quarterback was the big issue, but you were like, well, they still have most of their defensive players from the 2020 championship team. They have a lot of their weapons. Don't sleep on Mike
White. I've always liked him. He was a guy that I was hoping would find his way into Cowboys' lap because I think he's an explosive player.
And he's been consistently great the whole season. And Tampa, they played way better than the 9-8 team their record says they were, and that they almost beat Detroit. I don't like the 2-point conversion attempt they did toward the end of the game, but
I'm not getting that's become a thing, and I'm not getting it.
Yeah,
okay, I get it if you're in a game where you've got a play that the defense cannot stop. It. Okay, I get that. Put a little pressure, but you're seeing it like almost every team doing it. And I get you're wanting to put pressure on another team, but it's that risk reward. Is the risk big enough? If you feel like your defense is gassed and, okay, then maybe. But I didn't feel like that. Like I said, both teams kind of move. At times, both teams move the ball, and at times, both teams struggled to move the ball. I don't know. That was just Bowles, I think, just allowed the moment to get a little too big right there.
Yeah, I think so. But Bowles can build off of this. He got his first playoff. He got his first playoff win.
This is a guy I think most people thought might be fired at the end of the year.
Oh yeah, me included. I had nothing against Bowles. It's just he seemed like he was in a lame duck season. It seemed like they were just going to transition into something else. They were going to tear it down, but they rode the ship. Mike Evans had a career year. Rashad White had a career year. They seem like they have a good foundation going into next season. I think just another off season with the same OC and players. Upgrade the defense a little bit, although they have great pieces in Vita Vea. Antoine Winfield has been regarded as the best safety this season. They have some good cover corners. So they have talent there. I think they just need to keep building. And then they're in a winnable division too. Now, that might change next season if Belichick ends up taking that Falcons job. But for the most part, it's a very winnable division.
Is Belichick bringing Brady? Because until Atlanta gets a quarterback figured out, I don't care who their head coach is. But you bring up a good point, and I was actually going to say this right when you started talking. I put it in my let me say this file. I feel like the NFC South is going to be next year's AFC South, which the AFC South this year was last year's NFC East, where you have the division everybody's going to say is the worst will actually statistically be one of the best, even though that you still can't trust the teams inside of it. But I think the NFC South rebounds. I'm actually really surprised the Saints have not fired Dennis Allen. I mean, it just not only because of the now 2 seasons of meh, but just the things that are coming out about him. He just doesn't seem like he's a guy that's very well respected. And so I'm surprised they haven't fired them, because to me, you're going to see Tampa improve. You're going to see Atlanta bounce back. I even think Carolina is a little bit better. I think the NFC South is going to be a fun one next year.
Yeah, outside of the AFC North, I think the AFC South was probably the best division this season. But yeah, I guess we'll just see. Firing, or I guess parting ways with your offensive coordinator kind of saved Dennis Allen his job for next season. But they will definitely have to. They actually had a better record. They were 9-8, but they definitely need to go ahead and get to 10 wins, win the division, host a playoff game, and that'll save his job. I think it's playoff or bust, or playoff or fired for Dennis Allen in 2024.
Oh, yeah, and I think if they start slow, he might not even make the season.
Possibly.
And Derek Carr, you're starting to learn, and I love Derek Carr. He's fun. But you're starting to learn Derek Carr is doing what Derek Carr does, and that's in key game struggle. And then when it feels like the team's almost out of it, he rallies and has the greatest end of his career, but they just fall short. And that's kind of what kept happening in the Raiders and stuff. It's that consistency. But it just doesn't seem like Dennis Allen's well-liked. I don't know. It's just some of the things that come out after the Winston thing, which I still think is the most overrated wah in the world. Again, we're this same society that screams about woke and being soft is then complaining because a team lined up in victory formation and then scored a touchdown. Ooh, that's so bad. I don't know. I think that kind of stuff's bullshit. But anyway, so for this game, going back to Detroit, Tampa, got on a big Saints thing there. For Detroit, hey, you proved me wrong. I thought that they were the hot team that we see every year that makes the playoffs, and then they can't make that next step. Detroit makes that next step. By the way, Dallas, a team that one of the other 2 teams in the NFC that you could hold hey, we've played in a title game before. Yeah, that just got broke, buddy. The Lions have now leapfrogged the Cowboys. They make their first NFC title game since that 1991 season. Hey, I'm all in now, man. Detroit, they're one of those teams. They might not have the best of this or that, but they do everything well enough to be a really good team.
The only X factor with the Lions is, can they protect Goff? For the most part, they have. And the games they've lost, they haven't. Now, with their star tackle, Frank Ragnow, being hurt, I'm pretty sure he'll play in the conference championship game, but I'm not sure how healthy he's going to be.
Dude, him and the battle they showed between him and Vita and just that line. I mean, he's one of those guys. I think he's the breakout like Jason Kelsey was a couple years ago. I think he's the breakout star of the playoffs because, I mean, he's not like Larry Allen dominating, but, man, he just gets in there and brawls and loses some, wins some. But, man, it was fun to watch them spotlight him.
And, he's been doing that for years, but now that they're good, now people are starting to take notice of him. And I'm happy about it. I mean, they have quietly built one of the better. I'm sorry, the center. I said tackle. Yeah, one of the. Yeah, when you said Vea, I was like, oh yeah. He's quietly been one of the better offensive linemen in the NFL. It's just now people are finally starting to notice it.
Yeah, and it's always fun when the football fandom catches it and kind of like Jason Kelsey's living in that moment right now, where everything he does, everybody loves, and then he'll say something wrong and everybody will hate him. But I was impressed with Goff. Again, like you said, he didn't really get a ton of pressure on him, and that's when he's free. And that was the knock on him with the Rams. And that was the whole thing where we talk about with Sean McVay admitting he froze in the Super Bowl as far as game planning because he lost trust in his quarterback, and he was so sure that the Pats were going to bring pressure all day and just eat him alive. And that's again where we can all talk about Brady, but you go back and you see how Belichick played that game and did the exact opposite. Again, that's the thing where we talk about 2 weeks ago with the Cowboys. When you do something you haven't done all year and it fails, it looks really, really bad. When you do it and it works, you look like a genius. So it goes back to that risk reward thing.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. Big win for the Lions. I think Washington's the only team the Cowboys, I think Washington's last time they made it to the conference championship game was 91.
Yeah, when they beat the Lions like 38-9 or something like that.
I have to look at each team in the NFC, but I think that's the only team that hasn't reached that far since or outside of the Cowboys.
Yep, it is, unfortunately. And again, it's just all right, so let's go to the final game on Sunday. Trying to be positive. Kansas City outlasts Buffalo in another thrilling game between these two teams. What I love about this rivalry, this little mini rivalry going on is, both quarterbacks tend to play well, so you don't have to start having that, he chokes in big games. But also, the games are always a little bit different. We've had the high scoring, neither team can stop each other, and now we've had the very good offenses going up against good defenses, both sides winning some, both sides losing some. And again, I think just one of the better playoff games of the last 10 years.
And you could have said the 2021 divisional round was also one of the they play some good games against each other. I feel so bad for the Bills. I was rooting for them to win, not because I wanted the Cowboys to be the only home team that lost this playoffs, but just because at some point it's going to be about time for the Bills. That's why I'm worried about Sean McDermott's future there, because it almost seems like they're plateauing. Like, this is the best that they can do. Now, this year, I will say they had a rash of injuries on defense, more than the norm.
But doesn't that feel like that's been a thing now? Not maybe as many, but it feels like the last 3 years, Buffalo, like Von Miller last year, tearing the knee. It feels like right whenever they're on that cusp, something happens, and it goes back to what you and I talk about. Just because you think, we all have this idea, and the 90s Cowboys said it for us Cowboy fans. All right, you have a bad season, then you get better, and then you get better, and then now you're a champion. And so everybody looks for that. And that's not how it works. Sometimes it was a perfect storm right there. Everything broke right. But usually you have to go up and down. But also, just because at some point you're going up, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed to ever win a title. It just means you're really good. And I think that's where Buffalo is right now. Do you risk reward changing out the coach, changing everything, or do you feel safe and you can point to, hey, it felt like the offense got better after Dorsey was fired? Right or wrong, if Dorsey deserved it or not, it felt like the offense kind of found a running game again. And James Cook kind of reasserted himself as one of the better backs, And so do you go, okay, they're figuring it out, or is it time to make a change for just the sake of making a change?
Man, that is such a good question. I honestly can't tell you, because this team, when healthy, I don't think there's anyone in football that's better than them. But, I mean, I can't remember the last time Tre'Davious White played in the playoffs. It's ridiculous how injured they are. And then the new wrinkle to this was the miscommunication with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. I know it's happened all year, but there were some clear bad communication problems going on with them in this game. And I'm not sure what you do with Diggs, because you're going to keep Allen. Do you keep Diggs? Or do you try to find another replacement?
Well, I guess it all depends on how true is it the rumors about how unhappy he's supposed to be. Some make it sound like, he wants the ball, but he's not ready to leave. And then some are acting like, oh no, he's ready to go. I think you have to decide that. As bad as we want to talk about, they miscommunicated all year. They, Diggs still had over 1,000 yards, and I think he had 92 catches or something like that. And so I think that's the thing. It gets that's the narratives that get pushed when you can't get to a certain level. Same thing we're seeing with Dallas. Dallas and Buffalo mirror each other. The only difference is Buffalo has at least consistently got to the second round. Dallas has struggled to get out of well, I say struggled. In the last 4 playoff appearances, Dallas has got into the first round, past the first round, and 2 of them, they didn't in 2 of them. They're 2-2, but that's still the narrative. And so for Buffalo, they're now at the can't get to the championship game past it either. And that goes back to, do you make a change? If you are the owner, and again, we don't know everything on the inside, so we have to, kind of project. But if you're the owner of the Buffalo Bills right now, do you think this staff gets you to a championship?
Man, I would say 1 more year, only because we didn't see Joe Brady's offense for a whole season.
Yeah,
I think
that's your point.
another offseason of implementing and doing his tweaks. You saw what he did with LSU in 2019. I know that's a long distance ago and it was in college, but he's a capable offensive coordinator, and I think his philosophy fits more with this team. I think they should go ahead and run it back 1 more year and try to figure it out. Hopefully get healthy and figure out that wide receiver situation, because I don't know what's going on with Diggs and Allen, but there's something there.
I was going to say, you might see a whole wide receiver change because Gabe Davis kind of gets, he's the guy that he'll come up with some really good numbers at the end of the year, but then when you chart him, it's like he has 4 big games, and then that's kind of it.
Kind of like MVS.
Yeah, kind of like that. I don't think. Well, yeah, because the Buffalo fandom, Buffalo's one of those fandoms I kind of go to their forums and stuff because they're very like in the world if things don't go right for them. But they're very much on they hate Gabe Davis because they feel he dropped, and I think he does. So maybe it's time for a complete clearing out of the wide receiver room. I like Shakir though. I think you've got your slot guy right there going forward that could be a different facet to this offense. I still think that they don't use their tight ends enough, especially to have 2 really good ones in Kincaid and Knox. And I don't think they use the inside of the hashes enough with Josh Allen. And maybe that's what Joe Brady changes, because it feels like you could have, between Shakir and those 2 tight ends, you could have 80 catches and 1,200 yards just in the middle of the field next year with that talent and Josh Allen's arm.
So, yeah, that is a big question mark. I love your point. I was going to make that comment about the 2 tight ends. I assume they're going to keep Knox and Kincaid. And right now we're starting to see Kincaid outperform Knox on the field.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens next season. I think Kincaid will have a more prevalent role in the offense. I still think Buffalo is in win now, and they're going to do it. But whether it happens is yet to be determined.
All right, let's go to next week. It's the conference championship matchups. Game 1, Kansas City at Baltimore, Sunday, 2 p.m. This is the first time Baltimore is hosting an AFC title game since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger. That's the one thing people forget about. That 2000 Raven team, as great as that defense was, they weren't the number 1 seed. They didn't dominate the AFC and go like the Bears did 15-1, or even like Tampa did in 98 when they were 13-3. And even, when they won the Super Bowl in 2011 or 2012, they did that as a wild card. And so it's going to be crazy. Baltimore is going to be rocking. Chiefs are playing in their 6th straight AFC title game. Of course, it's the first one on the road for Patrick Mahomes. It is funny, though. That was a big talk for like 10 minutes into the Buffalo game. And then it was like, oh, he's still Patrick Mahomes, even in Buffalo. Never mind. Because I even texted you. And it's funny. I texted you this literally the play before the fumble that almost got the Bills back into the game. I said, it feels like Kansas City's about to just run through everybody. And I still contend that. It feels like I'm calling it now. I have Kansas City winning this game. It's nothing against Lamar Jackson. It's nothing against the Ravens. I think that they are a Super Bowl contending team. I just feel like Kansas City right now, until they get beat, I'm not going to go against them in a playoff game.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against a team that's made the Super Bowl 3 times, won twice, been at the conference, been in the conference championship game in the last 6 years. Uh, they're winning a whole different way. They're winning with running game and defense, which is not what they did the prior 5 years. So it's pretty interesting. It's kind of like the old school Chiefs I used to watch growing up in the '90s, defense and running game.
But
Back
yet,
then,
but they still have Mahomes when they need him to, though. That's the scary thing.
he was very efficient in this game. I think he threw for a little over 200 yards. It was almost like a '90s quarterback. Like, oh, this is great for the '90s. I mean, he was like 17 23 or something like that for 200 some yards. So yeah, it was very efficient by Mahomes, but he didn't need to be a star. Like Pacheco was running all over the place. Rashae Rice had a pretty solid game. Kelsey got back into form. He did. Oh yeah, I just wanted to do this to you, buddy. Love you.
What? Football. Tackle. Man. I'm on the
I
ball.
did. I did. Going back to that divisional game, I did love seeing Jason Kelsey shirtless, celebrating with a beer in his hand.
Dude, I the fun that he was having. I listened to their podcast, and I always am very interested to hear players after a loss, like how they talk and just their mood and stuff. And the Kelseys, they record like I think Monday, so it's pretty like fresh. And it was just so refreshing on last week's episode that he was more wanting to just talk about the Chiefs and playing the Bills. Let's talk about that. And Travis is like, well, you got to process yours. And he's basically like, you're still in the season. That's what's most important now. I just love that. That was so cool. And he was so cool that he was in Buffalo rooting for the Chiefs, but made friends with all the Buffalo fans. He picked up a little girl who had a Taylor Swift sign and showed Taylor so Taylor would wave at her. Just, I love that kind of stuff. I think it's really, really cool. In saying all that, I like Kelsey and the Chiefs in this game. I just, part of it is just till they don't, until they get beat, but also that defense is the type of defense that with Spags at defensive coordinator, I can just see him. This is when he's going to pull the blitzes. This is when you're going to start seeing the Chiefs send 6 guys, because that's what Spags does. And it's going to be kind of like what Baltimore likes to do. You're going to see 6 coming, but only 3 are actually going to finish. The other 3 are going to drop back into coverage and try to make you guess and try to make a bad read. I think this is actually going to be kind of a high-scoring game, though.
I think this is going to be the start of a new trend called the simulated pressure. Both teams do it well. Chiefs are just bigger up front on defense, but they're the number. So Baltimore is the number 1 scoring defense. Kansas City has the number 2 scoring defense. So
yeah,
it should be a low scoring game, but both teams have MVP capable quarterbacks. So who knows what's going to happen in this game? I'm going to go ahead and go with Baltimore. I think they'll win by about 10 points. I'm thinking like 26-16. It might be a field goal affair. I just think Baltimore, only because they're at home, they're on a roll, and they're playing their style of football. I think Kansas City is playing a good style of football, but I don't think it's what they typically want to do. I think they're playing it out of necessity.
Yeah.
Give me Baltimore by 10, 26-16.
I think it's going to be like 31-28. I think both teams will be able to move the ball. I mean, this is one of those games, whoever wins, I'm happy. Like, I'm fine with either one. I would like to see Lamar do it just because all the shit around the things people say about him and stuff. I would like to see him, at least win. I have no problem with that if he ends up winning that and going on. But I think the bigger question is it going to be against Detroit or is it going to be against San Francisco? I'm calling it now. Give me the Lions in an upset.
My heart says I want the Lions to win because it would just be a great story. I just love what the fans were doing for Jared Goff. They were really supporting him and behind him. He's had 2 great home games. Unfortunately, I think Chase Young and Bosa are going to get to Goff. I don't think Detroit's offensive line is going to be able to control that.
But Green Bay, man.
Yeah, Green Bay did. Other teams at Baltimore did or late in the season. So, but yeah, give me the 49ers by, I'd say by a touchdown. I think Detroit will make it competitive, but I think it'll be a 31-24 game.
So I think that one's a 38-35 game.
I'd be very happy with either.
I think both games will score up more than what people are thinking, but especially and part of me, maybe that's part of why I want, and nothing against San Francisco's offense because it's really great, but it's just how they're built. maybe I'm wanting Detroit because I think the thing that we haven't had the last few years, well, we had the Eagles and Chiefs last year. What was it, 38-35?
Yeah.
That was a exciting game. We've had a couple, they're not terrible, but like I go back to the Rams and Patriots. God, that's just so boring and just so and even I'd say if the Rams in Cincinnati, it had moments and it ended exciting, but there were big patches of that game where both offenses just couldn't, it was 3 play and out and punt, 3 play and out and punt, three. And so maybe I'm just wanting one of those games that's like a 42-35 team, team A goes down in the last 2 minutes and scores a touchdown. I don't know. Either way, though, I do think that just like the division round this past week, I do think these are the two really, really fun games.
Yeah. Having said that, I think the AFC title game is basically the Super Bowl. I think whoever wins that game will win the Super Bowl. So,
wow.
So there's my pick, Baltimore, all the way.
All right, I like that. All right, we'll finish out with some coaching news. Only a couple ones. Eagles fire their defensive coordinator, Sean Dressay. Again, he had replaced what's his name, Brandon Station.
Jonathan Gannon.
Jonathan Gannon. Why'd I say Brandon Station? Jonathan Gannon. He had replaced him. This feels like the head coach having to already save himself. And I'm going to go back to, we can talk about it, joke about it, and say, well, hey, at least Philadelphia is willing to make changes. But Philadelphia, you've been in 2 Super Bowls in the last 6 years, and yet you're literally, there's threats that you might be firing the second coach. I mean, there's got to be some stability to where a guy who just won you a Super Bowl or just got you to a Super Bowl can have a down year or injuries or just kind of readjust and not be literally right back where he's technically, and I think he is coaching for his job next year.
And a down year, it was 11-6 in a first round exit. Like, this was not that bad of a year. They had a bad ending, but you kind of knew why it was. So just fix that, and they'll be back to being dominant next season.
Well, I do think it's bad just for like Dallas, as you've kind of brought it up. Green Bay looks like they might be on the uptick. The Lions look like they might be for real. Minnesota, I still think everybody looks around and realizes, if Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt, they might have been the NFC dark horse team, and they're not far away from that. And them making the Dalvin Cook move is saving them money. Now they got to decide what they want to do with Kirk Cousins this year, but the point is they're not that far off. And as we talked about, the Bucs aren't that far off. The Saints aren't that far off. Atlanta feels like, again, we joke, you get the right quarterback and right coach, they might be Detroit in 2 years. So I think Dallas and Philadelphia will look at this year, especially if Detroit wins it and beats San Francisco. But they will look at this year and be like, that was our best chance. That doesn't mean they won't both make it in the next few years. But I'm saying this, and we said that at the beginning of the year, dude. And we said this at the playoffs. When they got the number 2 seed, I said it to you. I said, I will not trust Dallas if they can't handle this situation. That's why I won't. Next year, I will start the year hate watching the Cowboys. 100%. Go watch Major League 2, folks. Randy Quaid's character, that is me. Anything that goes good, that's just bullshit. It's going to get bad. I still can't. I was thinking about this before we recorded this morning. I still have – this is the longest I've had just pure anger as a fan about the Cowboys. I'm still just seething about last week.
I think this is the longest I've felt this bad, too, even more than the 2016 playoff game against the Packers. This one stings a little bit more because it's, like you said, it's what could have been. This seemed like a prime opportunity to at least get to this weekend upcoming.
Yeah.
And it's just sad to see another season go.
No, and again, and maybe that's when it'll happen when we least expect it. But going back to the point is, and here are the Eagles. They've been to the Super Bowl twice in the last 6 years, and yet I get being aggressive and making a move one step too soon instead of one step too late. But you sometimes got to figure out that medium and let the dude cook and see what he can do and see what he can build, because the Eagles are not that far off. They're not. I mean, they're still. I mean, I still make the case that they're still better situated than Dallas simply because of salary cap. Now, if that does, once they figure that out, then it's back to even. But yeah, right now, like going into next year, I probably still have the Eagles as the favorite in the NFC East, depending on, of course, drafts and all that kind of stuff.
I really think Nick Sirianni should have not demoted Sean Desai so early in the season. It wasn't really early; it was like 11 or 12 games in. But I think he just pulled the trigger a little too fast, and that's what kind of started the downward spiral. Uh, I think if you kept him for the whole season, they would have beat Arizona, and the Giants would have had 13 wins, which would have been competitive for a 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah.
So I think Sirianni just needs to be more patient the next season, and I think
he's allowed to be. That's my point. I think the front office for Philadelphia has to be more patient to allow him to be more patient.
that's very well true. I mean, just based off their history, what they did with Chip Kelly after 3 years, what they did with Doug Peterson 2 or 3 years after they won a Super Bowl, all the rumors right now about Sirianni are circulating after year 3. So yeah, it's a good point.
Year 3 of winning double-digit wins.
Yeah.
Going to a Super Bowl, having playoff success. As much as Dallas frustrates me by not pulling the trigger sometimes, I think it's way worse. I think it's way worse to always pull too early. Pulling too late only sets you back 1 year. Pulling too early can completely change the, and also if you're talking about other things, pulling too late, you have kids pulling. I saw the look on your face. I know where you were going. And then
I thought that's where you were going.
No. See, I have now completely, fully tainted you. You now wait for the worst from me. And then the Bears, they hire offensive coordinator Shane Waldron from Seahawks. I think apparently him and the Seahawks are basically not. He wasn't being fired. It was a mutual, hey, I'm going to look on anyway. I don't know what this means for the Bears. My biggest fear, and I think it's the hardest thing to do with a quarterback like Justin Fields. And we've seen how Baltimore, even with an MVP campaign and probably a second one, we've seen Baltimore have to figure it out. How to balance when to run and when not to run from a guy like Justin Fields. Because make no mistake about it, at least 50% of what will make Justin Fields successful in this game is his running. And I just always fear you're going to get the year where the offensive coordinator is going to, we want to keep him in the pocket. And that's the worst thing you can do. Because I think that's what hurt them early in the season.
That was kind of the main issue with, going back 20 years, Michael Vick with the Falcons.
Yes.
A lot of people were trying to put him in the pocket. I'm like, that's not who he is. That no one had ever seen any quarterback like him before. And now you see 20 years later, he's more of the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even think nobody even when you look at quarterbacks coming out into the draft, I just assume they're going to be able to scramble. I was shocked when Desmond Ritter's he's not really a scrambler. I was like, what? How is he? Oh, that's why he sucks now. Seriously, that's a lot of his thing. He's sitting in the pocket, old school football, throw it in the last moment. That's great. But when you can't break out containment and give yourself options, you're just throwing into windows you hope your guys are. And that's why I would not want a statue quarterback.
Even with Brady, he was still mobile within the pocket.
Mobile. Yes.
And he made really quick decisions. So unless you're Tom Brady, you really should be able to be more mobile.
Yeah. And it just, but anyway, I don't even know what we're talking about. Oh yeah, it's Shane Waldron. I guess it'll be okay. I don't know. We don't know where the Bears are with how they're going to do it. I do think them not hiring Kingsbury tells me that they might be leaning to keeping Justin Fields, but you can make the case that what Waldron does well will work for both Fields or Caleb Williams or whoever the Bears end up taking if they do decide to move on from Fields. So I still think that they're doing a good job of kind of not showing their options yet because they don't need to. You want people to think that you might take a number 1 pick so that they're willing to give you more picks so you won't take the number 1 pick so they can have them. And so I think that's a good job by Chicago right now of kind of keeping their options hidden.
I mean, not getting Kingsbury almost says that they're not going with Caleb Williams.
I think Waldron is a guy that can, what he does well will help Fields or Caleb Williams, either one of them.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, he's a really solid offensive coordinator. What he did with Geno Smith is pretty amazing. So,
because Geno Smith basically came back this year and almost had the exact same year. The whole reason that people are acting like he had a down year is because Seattle didn't make playoffs. That's the only difference in last year and this year. And Geno Smith's play was almost identical.
Same record
and everything. It's just how the tiebreakers went this year. But yeah, so for Geno Smith to year 2 to have the same, that's impressive to me. Now I'm curious to see what Seattle does and where they're going to go with their coach and all that. It's going to be interesting. Anyway, you have anything else to say? I think we're almost done.
I'm looking forward to Saturday off of football and catching up on shows that I have on my phone that I need to catch up on.
Are you? Well, I didn't do that. Are you getting? What the heck? There we go. Are you getting to the point now where you're kind of ready for football to be over? Because I am. Not just because the Cowboys lost. I get to this point. That's why I've always contended. I don't like football in the spring. I'm a sports of that season. I want to not have football year round. I want to not miss football for a while so that come May, come the draft, come all that, you're getting back into it. I need that time off, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, same. Yeah. I mean, mid-February is the Super Bowl, and 2 months later is the draft. So and then 2 or 3 months later, teams are reporting to camp. So there's enough separation, and then you and I will be doing a bunch of off-season shows. So we'll be around football, but I could definitely use a break.
No, I totally agree with you. And honestly, these games, and it was the same way with like Baltimore, Houston. As long as the games were close, I was watched. But like as soon as the Houston game got out, I flipped over and we started watching a movie. Or actually, no, I'm doing a rewatch with my fiance with Veronica Mars because she had never seen it. And so
I've never seen it either.
Yeah, you've never seen it. Great show, and it holds up. I mean, yeah, it's weird to think about high school and all that, but it's hard for me to watch shows now that are based in high school because I just don't get it. But that was in the early 2000s, so that was still in my window. Anyway, I don't know what the hell we're talking about. That's it, Turnelli. I'm Terry Bennett. This has been OutDrank The Coverage. You can find us on Facebook. Just type in OutDrank The Coverage. You can also find us on Twitter at OutDrankU, on YouTube at L4 Media. And then until the title game talk next week, this has been OutDrank The Coverage, brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions.